we're having a conversation with Ambassador M.K. Ibrahim, who was once Nigeria's ambassador to Libya, and also, among other, high-ranking functions, has been chairman of OIC, Independent Human Rights Organization. Okay, we're looking at the situation against the backdrop of the, the ECOWAS summit on Sunday, and the fact that, well, they've come to a realization now, it would appear, that is the regional body has come to a realization that what happened is indeed a coup, which it wasn't recognizing before, but it still has not taken sanctions off the table. It's given conditionalities for that. The conditionalities don't seem to be very palatable to the junta in Niger, but here is where we are. In fact, Niger has gone ahead and forged alliances with Mali and Burkina Faso, who have also stopped collaborating with the regional bloc. And apart from that, let me ask you, Ambassador, they've also reached, that is the junta in Niger, has also reached out to Russia. As you were just commenting on the fact that, well, they've severed relations with France, as is their right to do that in a bilateral way. But they've now reached out to Russia, and we've seen pictures of the leader visiting Russia. Your thoughts on that, sir?
Well, I think that was indirectly mentioned also, in the communique. It is not in the best interest of Niger. It's not in the best interest of ECOWAS, and it's dangerous, to Nigeria to start bringing foreign military forces, especially bringing the Wagner group to our borders. That Nigeria must do everything possible to stop that from happening, because that is dangerous to our own security. The security of Nigeria, internal security of Nigeria, is already fragile enough. And that will defeat the cooperation we are having with Niger in the multinational joint task force if we will be making effort in the sub-region to fight Boko Haram and any threat from foreign jihadists. And then all of a sudden, we are allowing a member state to get foreign mercenaries, to come into our sub-region. Nigeria must take that seriously, and that's why I mentioned that there are two aspects. There is the ECOWAS aspect. There is the aspect of our bilateral relationship with Niger. It has never gone that bad. From 1960, when the two of us, Nigeria and Niger, got their independence, we have had the best relationship. It is the only country where we have our embassy, and we also have a joint commission that will be responsible for our own bilateral cooperation in terms of trade, cooperation, and development. The only country that will have that. But then all of a sudden, from this regime, it seems there is so much bitterness against Nigeria, under the impression that the sanction of ECOWAS were Nigeria's sanction imposed on them. The authorities in Niger are unable to differentiate between ECOWAS and Nigeria. And this is affecting our bilateral relationship. And there is the danger sign in it of bringing foreign troops to our borders. Nigeria must do everything possible to see how this situation between us, our bilateral relation with Niger, it must improve or it must be stopped from deteriorating. And there is no sign of that goodwill coming from General Chiani and his military junta. And Nigeria should not allow to deteriorate further.
Okay, one moment, please, Ambassador. Let me bring in a caller. Good morning to you, Mr. George, and thank you for holding on. I wanted the Ambassador to land. Please go ahead now.
Thank you, Uncle Yori. Good morning, and good morning to the ambassador.
Yeah.
Uncle Yori,
Thank you.
No matter from which perspective you look at this subject, a representative government is still far better than a military junta. They don't have a parliament to check what they do. Nobody can tell them what they have done is wrong. Otherwise, they kill the person and nothing happens. Their budget is not scrutinized. We are still trying to retrieve how much General Abacha looted from this country up to today. I don't think we have even retrieved up to 50% of it now. What is happening, I personally do not think that negotiation can solve the problem with these military juntas. You can see them now forming an alliance within the ECOWAS region. The military, they are forming an alliance among themselves. Negotiating with them, as I see it, is the same thing as negotiating with bandits. It will not work. They cannot understand that kind of language. What I have said before, and I'm repeating again, is that the ECOWAS should push for a stricter sanctions, economic, political, and social sanctions against any ECOWAS country that goes military. They should take the idea to African Union and sell it to African Union that any country in Africa that goes military should be expelled from the Union. And also encourage the African Union to take it to the United Nations, that whichever country that decides to go military should be expelled from the United Nations organization, and they should not lend any money or give any assistance to such a country. That hard line is the only thing that people like these military juntas can understand. If you keep on negotiating, look at them now, they are growing wings in Niger. You are telling the ECOWAS that if you don't allow our men to move around, we too will not allow it. Who do they think they are? That's the only way I think they can, the language they can only understand is strict enforcement of sanctions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. George, for calling in. Ambassador, what do you think of, as was proposed there, a much harder line than now?
Yes, because in the communique, if you read the communique well, you will see that failure by the junta, to accept the conditions given to them by ECOWAS, that is short period of transition, then the ECOWAS will not only maintain sanctions, but request the African Union and partners to enforce the targeted sanctions on member states of the CNSP and their associates. That is, failure to engage with ECOWAS now will lead to asking the AU and other partners to impose additional sanctions, on the government, of Niger, and impose sanctions even on their family. But I think the situation, to me, is really a very difficult one. I wish I don't have to discuss this on this program, but if you read the report of the FAO on food insecurity in the Sahel, the indication is that even in Nigeria, we are going to have about 25 million people under food insecurity, hunger, 25 million, and this will cover 26 states, including 2 million people in Lagos. In Niger, it's going to be 2, 3, 4 times worse than in Nigeria. And you know what will happen? It did happen in 1972 to 1974 when there was famine in the Sahel. More than 1 million trooped into Nigeria. And once this border is open, this is likely, to happen. So it's only through mutual cooperation between us and Niger, within the context of ECOWAS, that we'll be able to fight this serious situation of food insecurity that is affecting our two countries and affecting the whole Sahel region. But instead of concentrating on this common fate of ours or enemy or problem of ours, now it seems we are dissipating so much time on how we can get Niger to cooperate with ECOWAS to do things that they have signed that they will do. They have signed the protocol, on democracy and good governance. It's nothing new. The current chairman of the CNSP participated in ECOWAS peacekeeping force, in Cote d'Ivoire. So there is nothing wrong. As I have said, there are 5 different coups in Niger, but it did not affect our bilateral relationship like it is happening now. If you are listening to the radio programs in Niger and you hear the kind of hostility against Nigeria, the denigration, to the person of President, our own president, Tinubu, is really unbecoming. You will not think that this is Niger that we have helped in many ways. In their last coup, 2010, Nigeria funded all the process of restoration of democracy, including funding their own election. I personally took $4 million in cash to Niamey, $4 million in cash. And 2 months later, I accompanied General Abdul Salami with additional $2 million, all under President Jonathan, to the various political parties. And after the election, their ministers and their president were resettled in Nigeria. In fact, the president was even given the option of even staying in France or in Nigeria. He was well settled here. And Nigeria made all this effort to ensure that there was democracy and good governance, there is political stability in Niger. Because one way or the other, it will affect us. If there is trouble in Niger, there is no way it will not affect in Nigeria. As I have mentioned, the FAO report is frightening. If there is political instability in Niger, be sure that it will be a big headache, to Nigeria.
Okay, one moment, Ambassador. Let me bring on, I beg your pardon. Good morning, Mr. Yakub. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Please go ahead now.
Yeah, thank you, Sheferi, and good morning to the ambassador. I totally agree with Mr. George by saying that negotiating with these guys, quote and unquote, the rulers in Niger and then some other West African country, is more or less negotiating with a bandit. I so agree with him. But for me, I want to ask a question, especially the question should go to the ambassador, because I know he's well known about this. Does it really mean that the ECOWAS as a whole, they cannot go there militarily? Because I see this guy not leaving that place with negotiation. Because when you test honey, it is hard for you to remove your mouth or your hand from the honey. Because as far as I'm concerned, in that country today, they were just doing anything they like because there's not any provision for any rule of law there. They were doing whatever they like. And by extension, when Mr. George makes mention something that the ECOWAS should go to African Union and then African Union should channel this thing to European Union.
United Nations.
I disagree with that.
United Nations.
United Nations, rather. Thank you very much. Partially, I disagree with that. Then I have my own reason. My own reason is this. If you look at what is going on in Gaza today, in every one of us are watching this, especially in Al Jazeera. We know what is going on there. And then I think yesterday, the United Nations come together and then they made a vote that the ceasefire should happen in Gaza. And only one country, I repeat, only one country says no, which is US. You understand what I'm saying? The United States said no, and then that vote out. Nothing happened. And I come to conclusion, even this thing took to United Nations, and then all the United Nations thought that the democracy should go back to all these four countries in West Africa that is ruled by military now. The democracy should return. If U.S. alone as a country said no, it will remain no because they are so powerful. So what I said now is this. I think ECOWAS should take the bull by the horn, either by military. If the negotiator is not going very well the way they plan it, they should go there. Who is in Niger? They don't have military power to even take only Nigerian alone, even though we have our own internal dispute. But at the same time, we cannot live Bazoum. Living in somebody's room as a person, not the elected president, and then you don't allow the man to go out.
Okay, thank you for calling in. Thank you very much for calling in. Mr. Ambassador?
Well, I understand it depends, on many Nigerians, but also they should understand our own constitution, for example, which requires the consent of the approval of the parliament, to send any foreign troop, to send Nigerian troops, abroad. And the mere mention of that in the first communique of 30th July, which says that there should be restoration of democratic of our constitutional order, in the event of that failing, all measures necessary, including the use of force, will be implemented. There was wild reaction to that, in Nigeria. The Niger used that as a publicity stunt. They told their people that, you see, this is our neighbors, the same people, they are coming to attack us. And even the National Assembly, majority of them were against the use of force. Indeed, just about a week ago, a group of northern senators were agitating that the sanctions should be lifted. Through those who are on the border with Niger, their economy is affected by this sanction. But removing the sanction, especially we are chairing the ECOWAS, that is not the best thing to do. I can only urge the government to look at the implication of the closure of border on the border of the neighboring, on those who are living by the borders and being affected by the closure of border from the Nigerian side. Niger is really a big problem for us. We mentioned of standby force. The cost of sending the standby force is about $1.6 billion. Who among these 16 African countries will bring even $20 million for the standby force?
Okay, one moment, Mr. Ambassador. Let me bring on, I beg your pardon.
Yeah,
sorry, Mr. Ambassador.
I want.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, during the Liberia-Sierra Leone crisis, where we sent our troops, Nigeria spent over $7 billion, and it cost us more than 1,000 lives of our soldiers. There is not going to be a repeat of that. Nigeria cannot do that now because we don't have the capacity of doing it. And other ECOWAS countries are not. They don't have the capacity also of doing that. And that's why this...
Let me bring on this caller.
Problem.
Sorry, Mr. Ambassador. Let me bring on this caller, probably our final caller, Mr. Joshua, calling in from Irewolede.
Yes, Uncle Yori, well done, sir. And then I greet the ambassador. I'm looking at maybe the final belt of this program, Uncle Yori. The ambassador can speak to the issue of good governance. The military in Africa or West Africa has always been a dicey situation where sometimes they come in and it looks like an intervention force that is acceptable to the people due to bad governance. And then sometimes I know there's no alternative to democracy, but at the end of the day, the democracy that does not serve, that does not deliver service to the people is in danger. So the people themselves are rising up against government, and then the military latches onto that and takes over government. Now, when you have that situation, we actually have big problems.
Okay.
Because there is a corruption of military.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Joshua. Yes, I understand you, and I'm sure the ambassador does too, but I'm so sorry, we do not have the time. So in order to give the ambassador, a couple of minutes to get in on that particular subject, I had to interrupt you. So, Mr. Ambassador, good governance, finally, in our region.
Well, good governance is very important. That's what the ECOWAS protocol is on good democracy and good governance. I have given you the statistics, within the 10-year period between 2002 to 2012, when 2012 rather, 2010 to 2022, in a period of 10 years when there was no coup in the sub-region. All the economic indices, there was huge, phenomenal increase. The growth rate had increased. The inflation rate was not as high as this. And the public debt was not also as high as we're having now. This is just an example of what good governance, can do. And
I think we're going to have to leave it there, Mr. Ambassador. I really beg your pardon. I know that was a bullet and you were going to expatiate on it, but really that is the essence of the subject matter. I want to thank you very much, Ambassador M.K. Ibrahim, for coming on the program and bringing clarity to this issue for our viewers to understand some of the dynamics and indeed some of the history of these conflicts in our sub-region. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
All right, then. So that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folare. Bye-bye for now.